The auto parts industry is counting on one thing, that you never read the label. Every year, millions of drivers walk into a store, grab the cheapest bottle of brake fluid on the shelf, and pour it directly into their brake reservoir without a single question. And every year, the consequences arrive as a soft pedal on a highway on-ramp, a vapor-locked caliper on a mountain descent, and in the worst cases, a brake system that simply stops working when you need it most. Here is the thing. Brake fluid is not a commodity. The difference between a top-tier formula and a budget bin bottle is the difference between a pedal that stays firm under emergency braking and one that sinks toward the floor. The market is flooded with options right now. Walk into any auto parts store and you will see dozens of DOT3, DOT4, and DOT 5.1 bottles lined up side by side, and most of them look identical from the outside. But what is inside those bottles varies wildly, some barely. Meet the Department of Transportation's minimum boiling point thresholds, and at least a few do not even clear that low bar by the time they hit the shelf. And get this, there is a documented NHTSA recall from 2024 involving one of the most mainstream brake fluid brands in America, where the wrong formulation was bottled into the wrong container on the production line. 10,368 units reached consumers who had no idea what they were pouring into their brake system. Today, MotorMind is naming names. We are telling you exactly which 3 brands to remove from your shopping list right now, and which 6 brands professional mechanics, track engineers, and OEM service departments actually trust. Stick around until the end because the final recommended brand carries the highest wet boiling point of any commercially available brake fluid on the planet. Brands to avoid, brand 1 to avoid. Generic and dollar store brake fluid. Let us start at the bottom of the barrel because that is exactly where these fluids belong. If you have ever picked up a bottle of brake fluid from Dollar General, a white label house brand, or an unverified no-name Amazon listing, you have already gambled with your brake system. A real-world test documented on YouTube showed that a Dollar General branded DOT3 fluid, freshly purchased, still factory sealed, tested positive for elevated moisture content straight out of the bottle. Translation: the fluid was already compromised before you even drove out of the parking lot. Here is the thing about moisture in brake fluid. Brake fluid is hygroscopic. It absorbs water from the surrounding air, and every percentage point of moisture drives down the boiling point. DOT3's minimum dry boiling point sits at 401 degrees Fahrenheit. DOT4's minimum is 446 degrees Fahrenheit. Once moisture starts eating into that margin, you are no longer operating safely. The real kicker is that vapor lock does not announce itself in advance. Your first warning is a spongy pedal, and your second warning could be a pedal that goes straight to the floor. But here is where it gets truly dangerous. Generic brands have zero accountability for quality control on sealing and bottling. Independent testers have documented inconsistent moisture readings from bottle to bottle within the same generic product run, meaning you cannot predict what you're actually getting inside a sealed container. These fluids are marketed as DOT certified, which means they cleared a minimum threshold at time of manufacture, not by the time they hit the shelf, and certainly not by the time they reach your caliper. Bottom line, a bottle that saves you $2 at checkout can cost you a master cylinder, a set of calipers, or far worse. Leave it on the shelf. Brand 2 to avoid. Prestone. Prestone is one of the most recognized names in American automotive. Care and that name recognition is exactly the problem. Drivers trust it on autopilot. They see it at Walmart, they see it at Target, and they assume that a brand with this much shelf presence must be delivering quality. The data says otherwise. In 2024, Prestone issued a recall after a production failure at their bottling facility. On August 13, 2024, documented in a NHTSA report, not a rumor, a different Prestone brake fluid formulation was filled into bottles labeled as Prestone DOT3. 10,368 units were sent to market before the error was caught. That is a fundamental breakdown in production quality control at one of the most mainstream automotive fluid brands in the country. And get this, even setting aside the recall, Prestone DOT3 has been repeatedly flagged by independent testers for high moisture content in sealed bottles. A Reddit user in the r/auto repair community measured their freshly opened Prestone Max DOT3 at 2.8% moisture. That is before the fluid ever entered a brake system. On the Pelican Parts forum, a Porsche owner who had just flushed their car with Prestone DOT4 tested the reservoir immediately after and found moisture readings above 3%. The real kicker is pricing. Prestone is not even the cheapest option on the shelf. You are paying a name brand premium for what the data consistently shows to be substandard quality control. When Porsche and BMW enthusiast communities are specifically warning each other about a brand by name, that is not a single bad batch. That is a systemic problem. Bottom line, put it back. There are better options at the same or lower price. Brand 3 to avoid: AutoZone private label and unbranded retail fluids. If you have ever grabbed the AutoZone house brand bottle because it was sitting on an end cap for $4, you have made the same mistake as millions of other drivers. Private label brake fluids from big box auto retailers are sourced from low-cost suppliers, repackaged under the retailer's brand, and priced to move volume, not to protect the hydraulic integrity of your brake system. Here is the thing about private label sealing practices. Mechanics and enthusiasts on forums have specifically called out AutoZone branded fluids for poor quality control on bottle sealing. Brake fluid is hygroscopic. It begins absorbing moisture the moment a seal is compromised. A poorly sealed container sitting in a warehouse for months before you purchase it is, in practical terms, partially degraded fluid before you ever crack the cap. Brands like Motul Nitrogen seal their bottles at the factory, meaning zero moisture enters the container until you break the seal yourself. But here is where it gets truly costly for modern vehicles. Generic private label fluids routinely use undersized corrosion inhibitor packages to hit a price target. Every component in your hydraulic brake circuit, your master cylinder, your wheel cylinders, your calipers, and your ABS hydraulic control unit depends on a properly formulated corrosion inhibitor package to survive long-term. High moisture content in an inhibitor light fluid means internal rust forming inside components that cost anywhere from $500 to over $2,000 to replace. Translation: you bought $4 brake fluid and now you're looking at a $2,000 ABS module. Bottom line, that is not a savings, that is a deferred expense with compounding interest. If you have made it this far and you are realizing you might have one of these fluids in your system right now, hit that subscribe button and the like button. Motormind publishes the data the auto parts industry does not want you to have. Brands that keep your pedal firm recommended. Brand 1, Pentosin DOT. 4LV. Pentosin is a German-engineered fluid with genuine OEM roots, and it is the first name many European vehicle technicians reach for when servicing BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Audi, Volkswagen, and mini brake systems. Pentosin DOT 4LV carries OEM approvals under BMW specification QV34001 and Volkswagen specification TL776Z, and it meets FMVSS S116 DOT4, ISO 4925 Class 6, and SAE J1704. These are not self-certified marketing claims. These are actual manufacturer endorsements validated against the thermal and chemical demands of production line brake architectures. Here is the thing about European OEM certification. When a fluid earns a BMW service approval, it has been validated against high compression calipers, ultra-precise ABS modulation, and electronic brake force distribution systems that operate within extremely tight hydraulic tolerances. Pentosin's inhibitor package is specifically engineered to protect rubber seals and metal alloy components inside those systems over the full service life of the vehicle. And get this, Pentosin DOT4LV is formulated with exceptionally low viscosity at cold temperatures, which matters enormously for ABS and ESP response in winter. A thick fluid is a slow fluid, and a slow fluid means delayed ABS modulation cycles when you need rapid pressure management most. The real kicker is that Pentosin also provides documented safety against vapor lock, a quality the manufacturer certifies explicitly in the product data sheet. That certification alone puts it in a completely different performance tier from anything on the avoid list. Bottom line, if you drive a German vehicle and you want a fluid engineered by the people who understand that car's brake architecture, Pentosin is the answer. Recommended Brand 2, ATE SL.6 DOT4. ATE is a brake engineering company with decades of direct OEM supply relationships across European automotive manufacturers, and their SL.6 DOT4 formula is one of the most precisely specified street brake fluids available. The ATE SL.6 posts a minimum dry boiling point of 509 degrees Fahrenheit, 63 degrees above the DOT4 regulatory minimum of 446 degrees Fahrenheit. Under heavy braking loads, a loaded trailer on a long descent, repeated emergency stops in traffic, or a spirited canyon run, those 63 degrees of thermal headroom are the margin that keeps your pedal exactly where you expect it. ATE builds the SL.6 as a low-viscosity, fully synthetic glycol ether fluid with an advanced corrosion inhibitor package protecting ferrous and non-ferrous metal components throughout the entire hydraulic circuit. The engineering specification explicitly calls out rubber seal compatibility as a primary design parameter, meaning the elastomers in your caliper piston seals and master cylinder bore are protected from swelling and chemical degradation over long service intervals. And get this, the ATE SL.6 maintains a maximum viscosity of 700 mm² per second at -40 degrees Fahrenheit, meeting ISO 4925 Class 6. That is exceptional cold weather performance for a street fluid. But here is where it gets truly impressive. The SL.6 is not a racing product. It is engineered specifically for street vehicles equipped with ESP, ABS, and ASR. Essentially every modern car built since the mid-2000s. You do not need a track day to justify running it. Translation, this is the fluid you install and trust completely, because ATE designed it for the exact conditions your car operates in every single day. Drop a comment right now. When did you last flush your brake fluid? Most drivers are running fluid that is 2, 3, or even 4 years old. You are statistically overdue. Tell us what brand you are running and what car you drive. Recommended brand 3, Liqui Moly DOT 5.1. Liqui Moly is a German chemical company with one of the tightest quality control reputations in the automotive aftermarket, and their DOT 5.1 formula is built on a fully synthetic base of glycol ethers, alkyl polyglycols, and glycol ether esters, chemistry that maintains stable viscosity and thermal performance under extreme conditions where budget fluids begin to break down. Liqui Moly DOT 5.1 is FMVSS 116 compliant across DOT 3, DOT 4, and DOT 5.1 simultaneously, with ISO 4925 Class 3 and Class 4 approvals, making it backward compatible with virtually every glycol-based brake system on the road. Here is the thing about DOT 5.1 as a classification. It represents the highest performance tier of glycol-based fluid. The regulatory minimum dry boiling point is 366 degrees Fahrenheit, but Liqui Moly's formula significantly exceeds that floor using a proprietary inhibitor package that includes scavenger chemistry specifically designed to suppress steam formation as moisture levels inside the system rise. These are compounds developed to protect metallic brake components from oxidation at elevated temperatures over the full service life of the fluid. The real kicker is the nitrogen sealing. Liqui Moly packages their DOT 5.1 with nitrogen-flushed bottles, meaning zero atmospheric moisture can enter the container before you break the seal yourself. That single quality measure puts them in a completely different category from every brand on the avoid list, and they back it up with a documented shelf life of 24 months in the original sealed container. Bottom line, for the driver who wants a genuine, measurable performance upgrade over standard DOT 3 or DOT 4 without paying racing fluid prices, Liqui Moly DOT 5.1 is the best available choice at the mid-range price point. Recommended brand 4, Brembo Evo Sport. Brembo needs no introduction in the braking world. The Italian company supplies brake systems to Formula One paddocks, MotoGP teams, and the world's most demanding production vehicles: Ferrari, Lamborghini, Porsche, McLaren. Their Evo Sport brake fluid brings that engineering heritage to a street-legal, ABS-compatible formula for performance-oriented daily drivers. The Brembo Evo Sport posts a dry boiling point of 520 degrees Fahrenheit and a wet boiling point of 334 to 336 degrees Fahrenheit, both figures exceeding DOT 4 minimums by a meaningful margin. Here is the thing that makes Brembo uniquely compelling for owners of performance vehicles. This fluid is engineered with direct OEM compatibility with Brembo's own caliper and master cylinder hardware. That is decades of integrated development between fluid chemistry and hardware architecture. If your vehicle came from the factory with Brembo stamped calipers, and millions of performance vehicles do, you are running a fluid that was chemically matched to those exact components by the same company that casts the calipers themselves. And get this, the corrosion inhibitor package in Brembo's Evo Sport formula is specifically calibrated for the aluminum alloys used in their caliper housings and piston bores. Running a generic fluid through a Brembo caliper is the hydraulic equivalent of running discount oil through a precision race engine. Technically, it functions until internal corrosion in the caliper bore destroys the piston seal. And at that point, you are no longer talking about a fluid change, but a caliper rebuild. Bottom line, if your car came with Brembo hardware, this is the fluid that belongs in that system. Recommended brand 5, Motul RBF. 700. Motul is a French company with over 160 years of history in lubricant and fluid chemistry, and the RBF 700 represents the current apex of their brake fluid development. The RBF 700 posts a dry boiling point of 637 degrees Fahrenheit and a wet boiling point of 401 degrees Fahrenheit. Those are paddock numbers. Yet the RBF 700 is DOT 5.1 compliant and uses a glycol base, making it fully compatible with ABS ESP and every standard hydraulic brake circuit found in street vehicles today. Here is the thing about a wet boiling point of 401 degrees Fahrenheit. As brake fluid ages and absorbs moisture, which all glycol-based fluids inevitably do, the wet boiling point tells you how much thermal reserve the aged fluid actually retains. At 401 degrees Fahrenheit, the RBF 700 gives you a wet boiling point that exceeds the dry boiling point of the majority of generic and mid-tier fluids on auto parts store shelves. Translation: when this fluid is old, moisture-saturated, and past its service interval, it is still outperforming a fresh bottle of budget-grade DOT3. The real kicker is Motul's global distribution footprint. Unlike some specialist fluids that require overseas sourcing, Motul has one of the largest automotive fluid distribution networks in the world. You will find RBF 700 at specialty retailers, online platforms, and track day event suppliers in virtually every market, which means when you need it, you can get it without waiting weeks. Bottom line, for the driver who runs track days, canyon roads, or heavy-duty towing and does not want to flush before every single event, the RBF 700 is the most practical high-performance fluid money can buy. Recommended brand 6, Castrol SRF. And here we are at the end, the fluid that professional race mechanics, endurance track teams, and brake engineers reach for when the margin for error is zero. Castrol SRF has held its position as the gold standard of high-performance brake fluid for over 2 decades, and the data is unambiguous. Castrol SRF posts a dry boiling point of 590 degrees Fahrenheit and a wet boiling point of 518 degrees Fahrenheit. Read that second number again, 518 degrees Fahrenheit, wet. No commercially available brake fluid on the market comes close. Here is the thing about SRF's wet boiling point supremacy. Most brake fluids are engineered with a competitive dry boiling point and a wet boiling point that drops sharply as moisture is absorbed over time. That is the fundamental compromise in conventional glycol fluid chemistry. Castrol SRF was engineered against that compromise. Its chemistry resists wet boiling point degradation, which is precisely why track teams run SRF for an entire season, May through September, without flushing between events. It does not just hold up, it holds its peak performance properties even as it ages in a real-world system. And get this, Castrol SRF's wet boiling point of 518 degrees Fahrenheit is higher than the dry boiling point of the majority of generic and mid-range brake fluids currently sitting on store shelves. Installing this fluid means adding a thermal safety margin so large that vapor lock becomes a theoretical concern rather than a real one under any street or track scenario. The real kicker is cost in use. SRF runs a premium up front, typically $25 to $35 per liter, but because it holds its performance properties through an entire driving season, you flush less frequently. For drivers running track events from May through September, the annual cost often comes out lower than mid-tier fluids requiring biannual changes. Bottom line, if you drive a performance car, if you track your vehicle, or if you simply want the absolute best the industry has available, Castrol SRF is the only answer. It is the North Star of brake fluid, and after more than 2 decades at the top, nothing has displaced it. Your brake system is the single most critical safety system on your vehicle. When everything else is operating normally and something appears in your path without warning, your brakes are the last line of defense. The fluid running through that system either makes it work with precision or quietly undermines it over months and years until the moment of failure costs you everything. Here is the thing the auto parts industry does not want you thinking about. They profit from volume, not from safety margins. Generic and private label fluids exist because they generate retail margin, not because they represent the right engineering choice for your car. The 3 brands on our avoid list, dollar store generics, Prestone, and AutoZone private label fluids, share one thing in common. They prioritize shelf positioning and price over thermal stability, moisture resistance, and corrosion inhibitor quality. The 6 brands on our recommended list share a different philosophy entirely. Pentosin was built to satisfy OEM specifications from the engineers who designed the actual brake systems in European cars. ATE SL.6 came from a company that has been supplying brake components to automotive production lines for generations. Liqui Moly DOT 5.1 uses nitrogen sealing and proprietary inhibitor chemistry that puts it in a different category at a mid-range price. Brembo Evo Sport was engineered to match the exact alloy chemistry of calipers that stop the world's fastest production cars. Motul RBF 700 has a moisture-saturated wet boiling point that still beats the fresh-dry boiling point of most shelf products. And Castrol SRF was built around one uncompromising target: the highest wet boiling point in the commercial market, full stop. And get this, the price difference between a generic fluid and a quality fluid is often under $10. You will spend more on a drive-through meal than on the upgrade that could determine whether or not you stop in time on a wet road, on a grade, or in the emergency you never see coming. Change your brake fluid every 2 years, regardless of mileage. Do not wait for a spongy pedal, because by the time you feel it, elevated moisture has already been corroding your calipers, your master cylinder, and your ABS module for months. Bottom line, your brakes are only as good as the fluid running through them, and now you know the difference. Hit subscribe if you want the truth about what is actually inside your car, and share this with someone who is still grabbing the cheapest bottle on the shelf.